So, Richard, let's talk about, you mentioned the OGE, the head of OGE and what's
Office of
going
Government
on.
Ethics.
Office of Government Ethics. There's also the OCE, the
Office of Congressional Ethics.
And both of them have been in the news lately. The Office of Congressional Ethics went through a tough time a couple days after inauguration when the House Republicans tried to shut it down. It's an independent investigatory body that looks into misconduct by members of the House. And they tried to, well, not get rid of it, but bring it under House supervision, which takes away its independence. And we know that Trump tweeted out something to the effect of, yeah, they're unfair, but don't you have better things to do in the first couple of days? And so that plan went away. And then the director of the Office of Governmental Ethics came under attack for his series of tweets about Trump's divestiture plans or non-plans and so on. So what do these attacks on these bodies tell you? Are we edging toward a problem where we have these independent offices potentially losing their ability to do this kind of regulation? What do you make of this?
It's a good question, and actually there's a kind of a deeper problem here, which is in the U.S. basically we're kind of political all the way down. Now, unlike some other countries where there is a strong tradition of a truly independent civil service, where there can be people appointed for long periods of time that aren't accountable to the current administrations, a lot of things, most everything here that affects the political process itself falls within the political process. As we saw the last go round, our elections are generally run by political administrators, whether they are elected to run the elections, as they are in many states, or they are appointed by political people and serve at the pleasure of the political appointees. So it's very hard to come up with institutions that can kind of oversee the political process and enforce kind of rules of fair governance that are not enmeshed in the politics itself. We have tried, and I think these offices reflect different efforts on the part of the government at different times to create sort of quasi-autonomous entities to oversee and police. When the entities, the police entity realizes we can't be trusted to police ourselves. So legislatures are particularly difficult for this because legislatures don't want to subject themselves to executive branch controlled law enforcement or to judicial controlled law enforcement. And this goes back to the Parliament and their fights with the Crown in the 17th century. We have a speech or debate clause in our federal Constitution, which is designed to create some immunity for the Congress, and virtually every state has its equivalent. So there's a lot of nervousness about applying traditional law enforcement to members of Congress. So what are the three mechanisms for policing ethics in a place like Congress? Traditional law enforcement, which they're really nervous about, and there's a constitutional a yellow light, if not a red light. Elections, let the voters toss the bums out, but the voters sometimes like the bums. But the voters sometimes think that these bums are actually closer to what the voters want politically than somebody else. And self-policing. It's really hard to police yourself. And so what you get in some of these entities is an effort to try and improve self-policing by creating, it's like putting kind of a lock on the refrigerator to stop yourself from eating during the middle of the night, but knowing that the key to the lock is still in a cupboard up above. And maybe you can slow yourself down. And that's what this is. The Office of Congressional Ethics was created in response to the last round of congressional scandals which occurred in the mid-2000s, the 2005, 6, 7, 8 period, which actually helped knock out a Republican control. Then a number of people were indicted, went to prison. And so, the idea was to leave in place the ultimate decision of whether to bring internal charges, not criminal charges, but things like reprimand or expulsion to the relevant congressional committee, but to separate out the investigatory function so that you at least have independent investigators to which the Congressional Ethics Committee would have to respond. Mm-hmm.